What are the steps involved in buying a condo in New York City? Well, buying any property in New York City is a unique and often complicated process, so really understanding the process is very important. So let's break it down. Let's talk about everything you need to know about buying a condo in New York City. I'm Dewey. I'm your New York City real estate resource. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and let's get started. So the first thing that you need to understand about buying a condo in New York City is to make sure that you understand what kind of property you're buying. Now, the reason why I say that is because in New York City, we have several different kinds of buildings. We have co-ops, we have condos, we have townhomes, and all of those have different buying processes. And in fact, you're buying different kinds of things. With a condo, you are buying real property. That means you're actually buying the unit that is sitting in the building, which means that you're subject to property taxes and common charges of the building, much like you would if you had a house or condo out in the suburbs. Condos make up about 15% of the inventory in New York City, with co-ops making up about the other 85% in terms of apartment buildings. So understand that when you're shopping for a condo, you're going to be buying real property, but you're also going to be looking at a smaller set of the entire inventory that's available in New York City. Now, once you've decided that a condo is the right purchase for you, the first thing you need to do is assemble your team. Now, a lot of buyers put portions of this team building off for later in the process. Don't do that. Assemble your team up front. The first person that you're going to want to work with is a qualified and expert buyer's agent. New York City is a very complicated real estate market with lots of steps in the buying process. You want to have someone who's working for you on your side, who is knowledgeable about the market, can help guide you through all of those processes. Get that agent on your side. That agent is also going to help you fill out the rest of your team. The next member of your team must be an attorney. New York State is an attorney state, which means that our attorneys in New York State handle all of the contract work. That is very different from some of the suburbs out in the rest of the United States, where agents may negotiate and put together the contract, and eventually you may have a lawyer look at the contract and negotiate from there. In New York City, we negotiate, we get the deal ready to go, and then we hand over that information to the attorneys who will work on the contract and work on a myriad of other things. You must have an attorney ready to go. Well, you may say, okay, well, I'll get an attorney whenever I have an accepted offer and I'm ready for one. Except it's often too late then. You must remember that you are in a competitive market, and having an attorney ready to go is actually a competitive advantage. You can have your agent say, look, we have this offer. It's a great offer. We have our team ready to go. You have the pre-approval. You have the attorney in place. And by the way, the seller agent may know that attorney and be like, that's a great attorney. We're not going to have any problems with the transaction. It is a negotiating tool. If you wait and try to get an attorney once you've made the offer, another offer may come in that is ready to go, and all of a sudden that offer is accepted and yours isn't. Have your attorney ready to go. So you've got two people so far on your team. You've got your expert agent, you've got your attorney. Your third person on your team that you need at the beginning is your mortgage broker or bank. And you must be pre-approved before you go out shopping. So you must start having these discussions with your mortgage person and get them ready to go as soon as the offer and the contract is signed. So the three people on your team are the expert buyer's agent, the attorney, and your mortgage broker or bank. The next step is to sit down with your agent and your mortgage broker and have a very thorough discussion about your financial criteria and your budget. Those are two different things because often buildings have some financial criteria that you must meet to be able to qualify to even buy in the building. That's more relevant for co-ops than it is for condos, but you still have to have that discussion. Then you have your budget. You need to make sure that you're budgeting everything that you're going to need to be able to close close on that property. Now, condos often have higher closing costs, so you need to understand what all those closing costs are going to be, what your mortgage taxes may be, what your additional closing costs to close on a condo may be, and then also what your total monthly charges are going to be. So by working with your agent and your mortgage broker to understand what your budget is going to be and what your overall costs are going to be to invest in a condo, you will be so much better off. An agent needs to understand your financial profile because there is a board application associated with condos. So many people think that that's only associated with co-ops, but there is always a board application associated with condos unless you're buying some sort of sponsor unit. So you want to have this discussion up front with your agent, help them understand all of your financial criteria, work with your mortgage broker, get your budget in place, and then you will be ready to go. Now, the next step before you go shopping is to get the pre-approval. That's an extension of what we've been talking about. So you want to make sure that you have a pre-approval. Offers are not taken seriously in New York City without a pre-approval in hand, unless you're paying cash. And if you're paying cash, you're going to want to have some sort of proof that you have the funds available to buy the apartment. But if you're carrying a mortgage, you must have that pre-approval ready to go. Like the attorney, you do not want to put in an offer and then say you'll get pre-approved. That takes too much time. Another offer may come in and all of a sudden they're ready to go and you're not. Have the pre-approval in hand before you go shopping. Okay, so once you have assembled your team, had your financial conversations, and gotten pre-approved, you are, guess what, ready to do the fun part, which is to go shopping for an apartment. Now, a really great agent is going to create a strategy of what you need to see. I know that many buyers, it's very fun to go on the websites and look at things and want to go see certain apartments, but in reality, in New York City, you need to create a strategy for shopping that works against your financial criteria, that includes then your hopes and dreams and how many bedrooms you want. But the most important thing is that you qualify to be able to buy into a building, whether that be a condo or a co-op. So a really great agent is going to listen to all your hopes and dreams and your criteria, but they're also going to take into consideration all of that financial criteria and give you a list of very viable options that you can rest assured that you're going to qualify for. Shopping is fun, but it must be done with a strategy. Now, once you have found that potential dream home, it is time to work with your agent to create an airtight offer and negotiate the terms and hopefully get your offer accepted. Now, it's important to understand that New York City is a very data-driven market, and we do not really have lowball offers and fire sales, that sort of things that you may luck out with in other markets. We really don't do that here, and there are good reasons for that. Again, because we are so data-driven, but also many of the boards of many of the buildings do get a say in what the property value in their buildings are going to be. So there are some controls there. Your agent must help you understand the overall market, must help you understand the neighborhood market, and most importantly, understand the market within the building itself to help you understand where you must make your offer. It is important also within this period to get all the terms ironed out if you can. So if there's something that you want done to the apartment, if there is something that you feel like would affect the pricing that you're offering, you need to iron that out during this offer process because our contract process is very different in New York City. I often say offers are like water because they can trickle through your fingers because they're just offers. They're not binding the way they are in some of the other markets. So it's important to do your negotiation and make a really strong offer to get that offer accepted. Now, once you have an accepted offer, we enter into a process called due diligence, which is a great process that we have in place here in New York City before you sign a contract. All of the terms that you've negotiated in the offer are going to get handed over to your attorney, and the attorney is going to start working on a draft contract with the seller's attorney. However, the attorney is also going to get all sorts of information on the building. They're going to get board minutes to review. They're going to get the operating agreement to review. They're going to get the last 2 years of the building's finances. They're going to inquire through some questions about if there are going to be any assessments, the condition of the building. They're really going to do all the due diligence that you need to know before buying into a building and before signing a contract. If major red flags come up, you then have the option to simply walk away from the offer. That is different from most markets where you have negotiated an offer and immediately signed a contract and then try to work on the contract later. That is not our process. We do our due diligence. That can take a week, maybe up to 2 weeks, depending on how long the contract goes, and then we sign the contract, but only after you are secure about all the information that you've now learned about buying into this building. In most every contract in New York City, there is a clause called the as-is clause, and that's very important. As-is out in the rest of the market sort of means that you're buying, a broken down house and you're sort of accepting that as is, or a fixer-upper, that sort of thing. In New York City, however, every apartment is sold as is, which means what you have seen and the terms that you have negotiated and the building's condition you're buying into, and once you sign that contract, really not going to have any changes to that contract. In some cases, there are some negotiations that can take place, but not like you do out in the suburbs. Most of the deals, once you sign the contract, that is it. You have accepted the condition of the apartment and the terms of the building, and there aren't going to be any changes. So it's very important that you pay attention to the due diligence period, make sure you get all your questions answered, and then you sign the contract. So obviously that is the next step, signing the contract. That's very straightforward. Once all the terms are to your liking, you sign the contract, and then we officially have a deal. Now, once we have a contract signed and a deal in place, we start two processes simultaneously. We start the mortgage approval process and we start the board application process. Now, hopefully you've already been working with a mortgage broker from the very beginning and you're still happy with them and ready to go, so you can get all of your applications set and that process going. You will have terms in your contract that dictate how long you have to get financing approval before an attorney may need to ask for an extension. That's usually around 30 days, but sometimes it can be faster. Sometimes it can be a little bit more generous. Again, those are terms that your attorney are going to negotiate in your contract, but you'll start that mortgage approval process immediately. Now, on the other side, we start the board application at the same time you're applying for your full mortgage approval. Contrary to popular belief, condos do have an extensive board application. Board applications are always associated with co-ops along with the interview process, but therein lies the difference. You do have a board application for condos, but the approval process is extremely different. With co-ops, you do have an interview and they look at the board application, and unfortunately, a board can say no for any reason. This is not true with a condo. Unless there is something very wrong with your board application, all a condo does is make sure that the board application looks good, and then they issue what's called a waiver of first refusal. And that simply means that they're waiving their right to buy the property in the building. And once that waiver comes in, you are fully approved to move forward with a transaction. Now, most board applications are very extensive. We're talking hundreds of pages long, in some cases maybe even over 1,000 pages long, and they require a lot of financial information, referrals, employment information. All of that's going to go in that package, but most importantly, most of them require the full mortgage approval letter. So if your bank is taking about 30 days or so to get that mortgage approval to you, we cannot submit the board application until you have that letter to include. This is why it's important to do all of that work on the board application to the point to where all we're waiting on is that letter. And once that letter from the bank comes in, we put that into the board application and we submit it. Usually that process takes about 30 days or so to get your financial approval, and then a board can have up to another 30 days. So for full closing, we can say on condos, it usually takes about 2 months to close. Now, it can be faster, and we all hope that it's faster, but you should plan on at least 2 months to get to the closing table. Okay, so once you've received that waiver of first refusal and have board approval, guess what? You are finally ready to close the deal. And closings in New York City do resemble closings much like anywhere else in the US and any other market. The difference is that you're just working through your attorneys and your bank will be present. There's not a title company that is associated with this. It is worked through just the attorneys and your bank. Sellers and buyers oftentimes are present, sometimes they're not present. They've given power of attorney to their attorneys to work the deal. But either way, closing is at this point, hopefully, unless there are some issues, pretty straightforward. You've closed, you get the keys, and guess what? You have your dream home in New York City. Okay, so there you have it. Those are the steps involved in buying a condo in New York City. As you can see, it is a complex process. It is a unique process. I definitely recommend having someone on your side to help you through that process. So on that note, take a look at all the information below on the ways to get in contact with me. I would love to be the one to help you find your dream home in New York City. And I hope this was helpful. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button.